Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fifth online discussion on racism and anti-racism in sports.
Hello, everyone, and
This is
our
sorry,
online.
So this is our an organization that we are together with BOMOV'u, O Seminars and Alan Savunması. And this series of talks is being supported by the FAIR Network. So we have been tackling some different subjects in different geographies so far. And we are today on our fifth conversation. We are very happy to be hosting Ezgi Çakmak as a moderator and Ken McHugh as a speaker today. Just a heads up, we had the great opportunity to host Ezgi before, as she was a speaker talking about blackness from US to Turkey. She's herself working on slavery from Africa into late Ottoman, but I'll let you introduce yourself. So, and Ken McHugh is from the Sports Against Racism organization in Ireland. And I'll also let you introduce yourself. Have a good speak. We are here and we are listening. If anyone wants to jump in and ask questions, we are watching the YouTube and the Zoom, so you can just interact. Thank you. Have a good talk.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Nil. Thank you, Nil, Çetin, Alan Savunması, BOMOV'u, and online seminars for having me here as a part of this very exciting conversation and series of conversations, actually, which I think is so timely. And thanks, Ken, for making it possible with me. So my name is Ezgi Çakmak. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Africana Studies at University of Pennsylvania. And my research is about, as Neil said, African enslavement in late Ottoman Empire, 19th century, late 19th century. And I'm kind of tracing its racial legacy on the construction of ideas about race and citizenship in early Turkish Republic. That's my part.
Okay. So good afternoon from Dublin. The sun is shining here. It's but unfortunately we're in lockdown, so I don't see much of the sun. So my name is Ken McHugh. I'm a cultural planner with the social enterprise Sport Against Racism in Ireland, and I'm going to be talking about the work that we do, our programs and projects, and I'm going to talk because it's football against racism Europe Action Weeks, football people. I've got my T-shirt.
Yeah.
So see, I got to talk about that as well, and the actions that we have around Europe. So
yeah, we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
In the session. So I was working with African migrants in my master's studies, mostly with African women in Istanbul. And for that, I was volunteering for an organization working in international migration. And this was between the years 2011, 2013. And from the stories that I encountered back then, African men migrating to Turkey with the hope of finding a place in a sports club, playing as a football, being there as a football player was a huge part of the stories that I encountered back then. And coming from those years, I assumed that African men being as a football player in Istanbul, also African men selling watches and other things on the streets became the visual representations of international migration in Istanbul. But that was my limited story about the relation between sports and migration, international migration mostly. But I'm curious today, Ken, what was your story that brought you into this area? the area that you work voluntarily, using sports as a medium for social inclusion, cultural inclusion, and combating racism and xenophobia. Where did you get your motivation to get involved in this?
Yeah, before I go into the history of it, we have a similar experience of particularly African men coming into Ireland, into Dublin in particular. So in many ways, Sport Against Racism Ireland is the first port of call for them, because they play football. They have a lot in common with us, and so they would telephone us and say, "Can we join a local football club?"
Yeah.
It's different with women. You know, they've got different entry points, and so we had to go out and search for them. So so this goes back a long time. My involvement in anti-racism activity goes back to my childhood in many ways. So my father was a boxer and a professional footballer, and when we were kids, we always had people from all over the world in our house. It was like the United Nations in many ways. And so we were very used to cultural norms or intercultural norms. So from a very early stage, I developed an intercultural competence. And I was always very interested in particularly my father and mother named me after Kenneth Kaunda, the president of Zambia. I was then Northern Rhodesia. And he was the founder of the ANC, the African National Congress, in 1953. I was born in 1954. So we were familiar with Patrice Lumumba and Kenneth Kaunda and Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, my father always said Nelson Mandela would have been the champion of boxer of Africa, apart from this time he spent in prison, you know. So it started. It was a very, like, it was easy for me. I studied in the UK. I did peace studies here, and then I went to the UK to do cultural planning masters in the Montfort University under Franco Bianchini. When I came back then, I studied in England. I looked at Liverpool as a city, a multicultural city, but not an intercultural city. So we use the mechanisms like mediums like, for example, football or sport in general, and music as well, the arts. So when I came back to Dublin in the 1990s, we saw the need for using football in particular, sport in general, to bring the migrants coming into the city, to bring them together. So we started off with a proactive programs and projects, and the first one we started was Soccer Fest. And Soccer Fest was very successful because it brought people from migrant backgrounds, people who are coming here to work, people who are coming here to look for asylum, refugees, program refugees at the time. So we had, we have refugees at the time. At the time, we had refugees from Vietnam. We had some from Chile. So we brought them together. So that was very, very powerful intercultural exercise. So it developed from there, you know. So we were founded on the basis that we would be a volunteer-driven organization, not for profit. We're actually called a social enterprise over here. We have charitable status. So it's I think that's really important, and we still maintain that philosophy right up to the very present, you know.
My second question is actually about another volunteer-driven organization and its impact on what has been going on since the last days of May. As we all know, following the death of George Floyd, protests took place in the streets of the United States, but then those protests were echoed in different parts of the world and unexpected places as well. And then people started to re-question the notions of racism, particularly Blackness, and different forms of racializations that particular groups have been exposed to. So, and then Black Lives Matter, as you know, became a more internationally known organization. And BLM were started to be heard from different parts of the world in different conversations.
Of course.
So I would like to ask you how you have read this process since last late May, and then how your organization, sorry, was affected by this recent atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of young people who volunteered for us and you know, went out in spontaneous demonstrations at the US Embassy.
Mm.
It was also difficult as well because they had to mask up because it was we were in lockdown at that time. It's really difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the
And
middle
of course the alt-right here, you know, were accusing them of breaking the rules, and it's really really precarious situation. But at the same time, we were getting lots of phone calls from you know, private business, sports bodies. Listen, can Sari organize workshops? And because it's hot, we say hot trot. So BLM was the, you know, it was in the news all the time. It's on the front page, and we were on the back page with the sports and the things as well. So we put together a program for these people requesting workshops, and we also worked with the schools as well. But then suddenly things cooled off. Yeah, so a lot of the workshops didn't materialize. But the companies and the sports organizations were going to the media and saying, "Oh, we're supporting Black Lives Matter and Sport Against Racism, and doing workshops with us." And but it was only planned, you know. They didn't take place. So it was very difficult to continue the momentum. You know, we're always busy anyway. We always have our 6 programs and our 6 projects operating on a human rights, you know, underpinned by human rights platform. So, you know, it was really, for us, it was we weren't very happy with the response from the civil society. That there wasn't enough cohesion in the Black Lives Matter organization, and we have tried to help out as much as we could in terms of organization, but it's ongoing.
It's ongoing still.
Yeah.
Okay. So could you please elaborate more on what Sari has been doing in terms of using sports for combating racism? What are your past projects, and what are your current projects right now?
Okay, so most of the projects we started were actually still operating, you know, and I mentioned Soccer Fest. And the second big event that we do every year is in partnership with the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, UNHCR. So that's called Refugee Day. And that's quite unique because that brings together refugees people of refugee status, and people who are in direct provision centres, and they're people who are looking for asylum. We have 38 of them in the Republic of Ireland. So we call them refugees in waiting. We don't use the term asylum seekers. So refugees in waiting, it's just half full glass rather than half empty.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No, I haven't heard that term before, but it's supposed
better.
to
Yeah, it's more positive.
Yeah, it's positive. Yeah.
So we use that term, and we also bring together people who are program refugees, and they'd be people from the likes of Syria, from Congo. These are post-war zones. Yeah, so we program them in, and it's the only event that brings together all those different groupings. And we also have people from Indigenous Irish backgrounds as well, like, you know, from football clubs, and we have people from the media, have a football team there, so our football teams, and 7-side tournament, and it's hugely successful. So what we do is we bus people in from all over the country, from as far is from Izmir to Istanbul, for example, that distance, into the center, and they have a great day. And we have a gastronomic partner called Medina, and all the food is halal. So we don't have to segregate people in terms of the food wagons.
Yeah.
Non-halal and halal, everything's halal. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really powerful, and it's got a huge amount of respect and understanding from abroad as well, which is very important. The third project we have these are all events, and they're regular as well. And around every Olympic Games, we have Africa Week Athletics. We found that a lot of particularly African boys and girls were not participating in athletics, which in our neighbouring country in the United Kingdom, you'll see all the school champions are all Caribbean, African Caribbean, coming second, third generation from West Africa, for example. So it wasn't happening over here. So we decided to run a program, and it was called One Race, Human Race. And we had two very important high-profile patrons. One was Kipchoge Keino from Kenya, and also Wilfred Bungai from Kenya, both gold medal winners in the Olympics. So they're very high-profile patrons. So people brought their kids, their children, to the event, and it was incredible. You imagine it being presented with your medals from Kipchoge Keino, for example.
Yeah.
So while Keino was here and Bungai, we got them to do some workshops in the local schools, coaching workshops, for example. So that was very, very powerful. And out of that, then a lot of young people joined athletics clubs. But the theme of one race, human race, is very important, because we use a single race theory. We don't use a triple race theory like in what we call Anglo-American race theories. We believe that we've got one race on this island of Ireland, but lots of different ethnicities. So the whole idea was to portray that, because young African people were being called, with coming from different backgrounds, like mixed race, interracial, biracial, half caste. Do you use them?
Not homogeneous groups, yeah.
Yeah, people using unscientific terminology. So it was a double whammy, in the sense that we're getting the message across that there's one single race called the human race. It's not called human races, and we have lots of different ethnicities, and bringing the ethnicities together was a powerful image. A lot of people in Ireland think that that Africa, for example, is one country. It's a country of 54 different nations, and
yeah, it's still a note that we should make.
It's crazy, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's incredible, but still an important note to make.
It's crazy, But and also my family are Zambian, and sometimes they get asked, what part of Nigeria do you come from? Because people here, the biggest population, the African population here, is Nigerian, and we have the three different tribes, we call them, the Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, and and they're so different. Like we have them on our football teams, and it's incredible. Like it's a federal state, so there's going to be a lot of mixing going on, and animosity as well. We have to sort out the internal problems, and that's my job, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
So the other project that we have is we have got the biggest amateur athletic organization in the world here, called the Gaelic Athletics Association, and they're in every parish, in every sub-district on the island of Ireland, north and south. We have two different jurisdictions here, Northern Ireland and the Republic. So we bring all of we have a big program now, and it covers all forms of discrimination. So the Gaelic Athletic Association are anti-racist, anti-sectarian, anti-homophobic, right across the board, and it's a very, very powerful statement being made by this
very
organization.
powerful statement, exactly.
We have then some cultural groups are hard to reach. So, for example, people from Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. Football is growing in popularity, but the big games out there are hockey and cricket. So we've got cricket programs and cricket projects that incorporate those different ethnicities as well, which is interesting. In terms of our programs, then they're ongoing. So we've got Soccer Fest, Soccer Nights, and Soccer Nights incorporates young people from 16 to 20, most all boys, and they're from different countries. Some of them, quite a lot of them, are brought into the country or come over here as unaccompanied minors, and they're from places like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gaza. We got three footballers from Gaza. So they all play together and they meet every Friday. And again, it's using football as to integrate them, social inclusion. And part of that project is, a part of that program is an employability program where we're part of Street Football World in Berlin, and we have partners all over Europe. It's funded by the UEFA, the Union of Football Association in Europe. It's funded by their Foundation for Children program, and our business partner in that is FedEx. So FedEx are very good to us in terms of workshops. They're going to provide the internships for us. So if you're another company minor coming from Pakistan, say, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get into the job, into work. So we prepare them using football as for soft skills like curriculum vitae construction, mock interviews, and building up their confidence as well. That's really important.
Yeah.
Self-esteem.
Yeah.
So the second program then is that we have is Hijabs and Hat, because we found that young Muslim women were not participating in sports bodies. We did a survey in the madrasa and also in other senior Muslim schools, and the sport that came out on top was football. It's incredible amount of young Muslim women who are big Arsenal supporters. It's incredible. And of course Liverpool, because Mohamed Salah and Mane are there, so a lot of them support Liverpool. So they identify with people from their own country, but also from their own religion. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So we got young women there from different backgrounds like Sunni, Shia, and Sufi, but they never talk about the mosque they go to. They just talk about football. It's like football is a religion with them now in many ways. So it's really interesting that, yeah. So they decided themselves then, after a while, after building up a cohesion, to set up a football club called Diverse City. So Diverse City is an interfaith organization. So they bring in young women from different backgrounds, so Irish backgrounds, Brazilians. A lot of Brazilians are here, and they're playing on the football team. So the first year of operation of Hijabs and Hat, they won the prestigious Beyond Sport Award for a new project, and that really launched us internationally. So we were getting phone calls from all over the world saying, how do you do it? And so that, this country we've only got 5 million people in the Republic, so it's a very good laboratory for experimentation. It can be very easily imported to the likes of Turkey, for example. And Hijabs and Hat is tremendous appeal internationally, and we were contacted by a Canadian TV company, and they made a video that was broadcast to over 10 million people in Canada. So you have a very small, independent, volunteer-driven group in Ireland being, broadcast to the world. It was an amazing experience for them. Yeah. So the other project that I direct is in Belfast. With partners called Glentorne Football Club, and they're in East Belfast, which is predominantly Protestant area. So in the academy, I provide technical support for them, and their academy then has over 500 young people from Catholic and Protestant backgrounds. So we use football in particular to create a shared space where those young people can come together and meet each other. To go to separate schools because of they have a segregated system there. They live in different districts, but the football field is where they come together to unite. So that's very, very powerful. Very powerful statement as well. So again, we're working on a number of projects with them to, basically develop those that cross community, the intercultural profile of the club, and the club also has an academy in Nigeria, in Abba State. So you have young Catholic and Protestant boys and girls, and we also have a disability or a different ability group in that as well. So they go off to they support the academy in Nigeria. So the Catholic and Protestants working together to support an academy in Nigeria. It's a very interesting concept.
Super powerful. Yeah.
The third party, yeah. That's about it. Yeah, in terms of programs, they're the ones that are ongoing, so they're very powerful. And in terms of education, then education through sport program, we have it's what's called football versus discrimination. So we go into schools and we cover. We work with primary schools. So these are kids who are 12 years old, and we go in and we talk about anti-bullying, different forms of discrimination and how they're connected. We would see racism and sectarianism and homophobia and sexism as all first cousins, all related to each other. So we
So
covered.
related to each other.
Yeah. Usually a racist is sexist as well. That's the kind of form they take,
Yeah. All these projects sound so powerful and important because
Yeah.
you could find a way to reach out so many people from different backgrounds, and you could create a shared space for them to reach each other's experiences of xenophobia, discrimination, and racism. And also,
it has to be just on that. It has to be shared space, but it has to be a safe space as well.
Safe and shared, exactly.
That's the whole idea, to like we're very protective. There's a duty of care all the time that we have, and young people we're part of the Irish Network Against Racism, which is part of the European Network Against Racism. So we've got an report system. So if anybody experiences racism or any form of discrimination, we support
any form
them,
of discrimination is the key part of what you're doing, I guess,
Yeah.
because like racism has been interpreted as so limitedly as any behavior like maltreatment against Blackness, particularly all around the world. But by nature of what you're doing actually proves the contrary. So, and it shows different levels of racialization and different levels of maltreatment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's really important because we've got, before people start coming into the country, we were an export country. We exported people. It was a country of emigration for years. Like we have, I think if you total it up, I think we have 70 million people around the world who qualify for Irish passports. It's incredible. If they all came back here, we'd sink into the sea. To so many. So before like racism was always here because we have an indigenous Aboriginal traveling community that had just been recognized in the last few years as an ethnic grouping. So we also have Roma as well, and Roma and travelers have been the most discriminated against, in terms of racism. It's horrific, and we're afraid of particularly with social media now. It's really difficult to handle, and for tax reasons, we have the big, corporations here, Facebook, Twitter. They're all here in Dublin. So we've got access to the likes of Facebook through the Network Against Racism. So we make sure that we get takedowns, and we monitor Twitter as well. But it's a challenge. It's a new front that we're fighting on, and it's a difficult one because the alt-right are using these new platforms to basically attack us.
Yeah. So far you mentioned about what your projects that you've done in the area of sports, but I know your organization is also involved in education and training. So could you please talk about your projects that you've been conducting in the area of education?
Yeah, this is really important. They're really important for us. It's very difficult. It's funded. That particular program is funded by UEFA Children's Foundation. We did receive some funding from the state, from the Department of Education, but that's been cut off now. So it's really difficult for us. What we did during the fair action weeks, for example, which is now, we obviously with the lockdowns, it's very difficult. But previous to this, what we did was we got a van, a white van, and we had a livery on the side of the van with Muhammad Ali's image. and we went around the country.
Onwen. Okay.
Yeah. It's amazing the amount of kids that recognize Ali. You know, they've probably never seen him in boxing or anything, but the name is familiar with them. You know, so they see the van in the streets, and then we go to the schools, and we
Mhm.
do specific programs. We do a using football again, small sided game, 3v3,
Mhm.
that we got from Street Football World. And then we do a classroom study as well, and looking at stereotyping,
Mm.
xenophobia. Xenophobia is a problem where the fear of the foreigner is a, you know, it's very evident here because we're an island community. So people coming in, there's a fear the foreigners are coming in. They're going to, our culture is going to be diminished, and you know, it's complete nonsense because we have to share the cultures now, and
Mhm.
that's what we're doing really in terms of education. And using sport as a medium is a very powerful and very effective tool to get that message across. So last year in 2019, we touched over 9,000 young boys and girls in through the
Right.
schools. So we go into the classroom and we work with the teacher as well. It's
Mm.
important that they have the teacher, when we arrive in, the teacher doesn't go off for a cup of tea. The teacher stays in the classroom and basically learns with the students.
Mhm.
So I think that's really important. It's a really important area for us to be working in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then teacher training is important as well because
Yeah,
that's
I was gonna ask about
that's
that.
my
Yeah.
area. Now teacher training is again 90%, maybe more of the teachers are white Irish, you know, mainly female in the primary sector, which is interesting, and male and female in the second level sector. So they don't do human rights. So we go in. I do go in to do workshops on human rights with the teachers, in teacher
Mhm.
training. So to equip them to be able to look at texts, for example, like you're talking about, we're talking about Of Mice and Men, and To Kill a
Mm.
Mockingbird, and I'll tell of the play.
Mhm.
So I show them how to unpack these texts and how to see them as an anti-racist statements.
Okay, yeah,
But it's important to put them in to contextualize them
exactly.
and to be able to spend some time with the students, particularly in classes that are very mixed in terms of ethnicity, that we'd be able to they'd be able to understand the historic connections that the texts are come from. So that's really important, and teachers then develop their own methodology in the classroom depending on the age that the kids are working with. Well, I also do a sport with lecture in sport and recreation where I look at athletes who were formerly disabled or have a disability, like Garrincha, the Brazilian footballer, had one leg shorter than the other, so he developed a step over. It wasn't Ronaldo that developed a step over; it was Garrincha in the 1950s. Uh, I look at his physiology. I look at Wilma Rudolph, the USA triple gold medal winner in Rome, who never started walking until she was 11 years old. You know, it's
Mhm.
amazing physique that she developed through basketball mainly. And then also her baby Bakila, the gold haired from Ethiopia, who won the gold medal in the two gold medals, one in the Rome Olympics in 1960, running in his bare feet in Rome on cobblestones. Incredible,
Okay.
26 miles. And then he goes to Tokyo and he wins gold medal in Tokyo with I think Puma runners or something at the time. But when he went back to Ethiopia, Haile Selassie presented him with a
Mhm.
motor car. He crashed the car, broke his back, and he became a champion archer. He took up archery in the wheelchair, you
Mhm.
know. So that's the kind of work we do. It's not just, as I said, it's about ability, different ability, disability. So it's right across the board. It's, as I said, forms of discrimination that people are with different abilities are discriminated against. So we work with Special Olympics, for example,
Yeah, quite a wide
Paralympics.
range.
Yeah, yeah.
Quite a wide range, exactly.
All embracing.
Yeah. You mentioned briefly about your collaborations with international organizations,
Yeah,
but would you want to talk about more
yeah.
if
This
you
is the
have any kind of like solidarity with other organizations which are
absolutely.
also involved in using sports as a medium for social inclusion in
Yeah,
Europe or
yeah, yeah.
globally, all around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm old enough to remember the '68 Olympics when the black glove protest, and there's the first and second on the podium, and the second on the podium was a white guy called Peter Norman. He's from Australia, and the three athletes had badges, and it was the Olympic Project for Human Rights, which was started off by Professor Harry Edwards in UCLA in California. So that was a big inspiration for us, not alone Nelson Mandela, Muhammad Ali, but the fact that that action took place, and the fact that Peter Norman, as a white man, stood with the two black athletes, African American athletes, and then when he went back to Australia, he was completely ostracized. He was cut out of the sporting community and also the official Australia. When the Sydney Olympics came up, he wasn't even invited to the Olympics, despite the fact that he was the fastest sprinter in Australia. So he was a big hero for us, and we said, look, we're white people, so we can do the same. We can stand behind support whatever's going on in terms of people who are being discriminated against. So that's really important. So right from the get-go, we set up international connections, through Football Against Racism in Europe, which is now a huge organization, right across from the Aran Islands to the Urals. And we also we're part of Street Football World, who are very good to us because we can get a lot of our young people who are coaches, who come from refugee and migrant backgrounds themselves. So they do a lot of training for us, and we're involved in all their processes. We're also involved with partners with coaches across continents, and again they're very good to us as well. So give us access to the Michael Johnson Youth Leadership Program in Texas, and we have some graduates from there that are now studying in the UK to PhD and at master's level. So that it's a continuum, but we're very lucky because we're on this little islands. We have to reach, well, not just we need to reach out, because the international solidarity is really important. And the Champions Factory in Bulgaria, for example, have really been good to us as well, to take our people to Bulgaria and to work with them to give them the different coaching badges and what's necessary for youth leadership and sport. And we're also a member of Anna Lindh Foundation. Anna Lindh Foundation is really powerful, and Turkey are part of it as well. So we got that cross Mediterranean connection, and again, I'm responsible for developing the sports end of that as well. So yeah, internationally, it's really, we've got so many contacts and so many partners. Strategic, yeah. So then also, apart from that, then we, up until last year, the year before last, we took interns from all over the world, from Japan to the United States of America, a lot from Italy, and they would work with us on research, doing our monitoring and evaluation, which is really, really important. When you go for funding, you've got to have your proper monitoring done, and your evaluation has to be perfect, to allow you to go forward and try and seek more funding. But we run on a shoestring, and it's been so successful, so we just keep on struggling. Yeah.
Interesting. I can see that you have quite a wide range of networks that you work with globally.
Yeah.
But I also want to learn about the locality, the importance of locality that you're in terms of like the place of Dublin and Ireland, and importance of both in the work that you're doing with. I'm asking this, emphasizing the particular history of Ireland with UK and all post/colonial history and all the identity problems that it has brought to your locality. So
okay, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah, why do you think your work is important for Ireland, and how Ireland impacts your work
in the post-colonial context?
Exactly, in promoting social inclusion in post-colonial times.
Yeah. It's really important. Yeah. As I said, like 70 million people abroad, or Irish in America, Irish Australia, we're everywhere, So we got this good and bad reputation, like the Irish were involved in the lynching in the USA, the oppressed become the oppressor in many ways. They were the middle management in the Caribbean in terms of the slavery involved in bushwhacking in Tasmania, the anti-busing programs in Boston. So we got a sort of a reputation, but we've also got a very good reputation. For example, when the British came here, when we were occupied and colonized, we had an Irish language, a Gaelic language. So they introduced English, yeah. So everybody speaking English, but we were able to master the language. So we actually used the English language against the colonizer, you know. So we produced the likes of George Bernard Shaw, who was, you know, and Oscar Wilde, James Joyce, you know, and so many we punch above our weight in terms of the numbers of people who have got a Nobel Peace Prize for literature in particular, you know.
Yeah.
So in terms of colonization, yeah, sure, the establishment, you know, we were always fighting against the establishment. We were anti-establishment, but our connection with the working class, in particular of the likes of Liverpool, which is made up of 1/3 Irish, or North of England, Manchester, there was never any problem with that, because a lot of the footballers now in England who are playing in the Premier League and playing for England, like Kane, for example, his family come from Mayo. I think there's 6 players on the England team, Grealish as well, who are second generation Irish who are playing for England. So there's no problem with in terms of the animosity. That's all dead and gone. We're still very much anti-establishment in many ways, and quite radical in the way we approach things, both at home and abroad. And it's quite sensitive when it comes to Northern Ireland, because the majority of the population in Northern Ireland still want to maintain the connection with the United Kingdom. So we have to be sensitive about that and make sure that we don't upset we lost so many people in the Troubles. Over 3,000 people were killed, for what, you know? So we think that sport has a big role to play in bringing people together across the sea. Dublin, outside of Belfast, Dublin is the nearest city. Liverpool's the nearest city to Dublin. We're only 80 odd miles away. So we've got so much in common that it's all of the old colonial, damage that was done in colonial times is over and done with. I should say that a lot of people left here during the famine in the mid 19th century. And again, we had good international solidarity kicking in, because we got some of the indigenous tribes in the United States supported us with funding, with funds. And also during the Ottoman days, the Sultan sent a couple of shiploads of food over to us to support us, to try and keep us going. So we're very thankful to Turkey for we should pay back for that. So so in terms of the colonial history, obviously it's like the legacy, but we also have a civil service that was developed during British times that was reasonable enough. You know, it happens. They did the same all over the world. They tried once the colonial imperialists come into a country, they divide and conquer, you know. Yeah, same pattern. Same with the Portuguese, the Germans, the Polish, all over. Look, the scramble for Africa. Look at the history there, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not that we are. People say, "Oh, we didn't colonize," but we did. What we did was we sent religious people out to Africa. And Desmond Tutu told me a great story one time. He said the black or the white priests and Christian brothers and Christians came to South Africa, you know, with the Bible, yeah. And then when they taught the black person how to pray, black person opened their eyes, and they had the land originally, but then they woke up and they realized that the white Englishman had the land. You know what I mean? So we softened them up. We softened people up by saying, "Oh, there's a white God, a white Jesus and Mary, and the family are all white, but they're actually Palestinians," you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So my question is about today.
Yeah.
What do you think sports and using sports as a medium can talk to today's atmosphere, where I had mentioned before, when people restarted to question racism, xenophobia, discrimination, and all levels of marginalizations again in 2020. What could sports talk to this atmosphere today? What
Well,
can
the title of this session is the Formula One to football. So
exactly.
I think it's amazing what Lewis Hamilton. You never think that Formula One would do a knee and have t-shirts. Hamilton, like we all want to race together, and like I think that's really powerful what he's doing
It's
as
powerful.
an individual. You know what I mean? It's incredible, and
Mhm.
sports people like Kaepernick and taking the knee and all that. And they, you see that like the European games around now at the moment, you see them still taking the knee, and well, that's fine, but action has to be taken from that as well. That they can stand up, but you need to. I think we need a more planned approach to it. That's not just symbolic. That you have to kick it out and racism, respect, and that kind of thing. That's fine, but we
That's
need
fine,
to
but
have,
not enough.
yeah, we need to have an awful lot more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Thank you, Ken. That was my last question. We
yeah.
should check if we have any questions from the audience.
I'd like to jump in, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for this conversation. It's great. I mean, it's so inspiring. Both of your work are inspiring and powerful, and the conversation has been very thought-provoking and mind-opening. So I really want to thank you, first of all. You did already covered such a great ground. So my question is going to be a little bit, it may sound a little bit strange, but I have like a question with two parts or two interrelated questions of some sorts. And that's actually about the privileged groups and how the programs can particularly, I mean, the programs you are carrying out education-wise and other support groups, and I know they're mostly directed to people who are actually underprivileged, who are suffering from racism. So it's to support and to empower people and to basically change and fight racism, right? But so I'm wondering is, in your experience, do you also encounter with changing people's minds and hearts who are coming from privileged positions, who may not be racist yet, but I'm curious, like, because it's about education, right? Those racist people are products of the society, and the kind of that you are organizing are so important but I wanted to kind of formulate this as a question and say, like, is there something to do, like, is it salvageable for people who are already racist and who are like kind of already people who are trying to protect ourselves and other people from, is it possible to do anything to them besides fighting against them? That's the kind of first question. And the second one is to people who are just maybe more younger generations or privileged, coming from privileged groups, what to do for them, or do you already in your organizations, are you already doing something for these groups?
So is there a hope, you ask, Çetin?
Is there a hope to change the
in terms of education, like it's really important. There's an African, I think it might come from Zambia actually. If you really want to know what it's like, you should wear the shoe of the person and feel the pinch. So the shoes are very tight and you feel a pinch. So the young people that we send into the schools are come from refugee background themselves. They come from the same background that the kids are coming from. And the same with the soccer nights. Our coaches are from those backgrounds. There's no point in me as a grey-haired pensioner going in to talk about racism when it's the kids who have suffered it themselves who go in and talk about it. Yeah, that's one thing that's really important. The second thing is that we know from our membership, the Radicalization Awareness Network, it's a European Union network that people who are involved in right-wing movements in the past have come over to join us, you know, and we've got them working in different parts of the organization, particularly in the education side of it. And I think that's really important that they put their hands up and say, listen, I was a member of the, you know, I had the tattoos and I was a member of these networks and racist organizations, and now I've realized that it's wrong. So that's really important to have them involved and to tell this tale. But young people coming from, particularly from white middle class backgrounds, yeah, we target them specifically because the danger is that they will grow up supporting alt-right organizations. So we specifically dedicate sports activity we direct it send it in their direction. So for example, they would have in their schools maybe hockey, cricket. So, and it's very we try to mix them in terms of the festivals that we organize, so to get to know each other on a one-to-one basis. So for example, a young person from a fee-paying school from a middle class background who's white and privileged will be playing on the same football team, the same cricket team as a young Pakistani refugee. So I think the citizen diplomacy and the things is really important, that they find common ground with each other, and that's why sport is so important. And then we also introduce cultural activity as well, like music is very good. Traditional music and Indian music can be fused fairly easily, and that I think has got the arts in general has a lot to do and connected to our program. We have a very interesting one that we did a few years ago, which is funded by the European Union as well. It was called Stick with Diversity, and it's basically bringing all the stick games together, like hockey. We have these hurling games, shinty, baseball, softball, snooker, table tennis, lacrosse, bringing them all together. So you got all these people from different backgrounds playing these games and testing out the games in terms of stations, what we call stations. And we do workshops with them as well to explain the origins of the games. A lot of people think that, for example, cricket originated in England. It didn't originate in India. It's an Indian game. And we also talk about, for example, musical instruments. Where did the banjo come from? The banjo came from Africa, yeah. The drum, the baritone drum, came from North Africa. So we incorporate them in the food as well. You know, popular food here is Indian food, Chinese food. So we bring that into we connect them with sport and music and poetry. So it's really interesting.
And also maybe more organizations like worldwide working in solidarity and taking actions against what is going on right now all around the world can make the media Çetin, and maybe like making the media in terms of like social media and TV, whatever, can make a way to reach out more people, privileged, underprivileged, like more people in general. So it cannot be only on the shoulders of sports, maybe, but arts, academics, and media, all mediums should be used for that.
That's why we have very strong connections with UNESCO, for example. So you have tangible and intangible heritage programs that we connect to. You know, and UNESCO is really important, and it has to be more proactive, and it can be proactive through local groups like ourselves that will deliver on the ground. So UNESCO in Paris, and you know they have the programs, but it's about getting the programs down to grassroots is really important.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have another question?
Yasmin.
Yasemin. Yeah.
Wow, thank you very much for this inspiring
Hey, Osman.
Hello.
Hi.
That was great to hear you, and it's really inspiring to hear like what you are undertaking, and
Yeah.
in the entire like world in a way, Western or like European continent at least. I had a question about your naming. One race, human race. Where did you come? How did you come up with this name? I'm asking this because like I'm familiar with the continental European context, like with France and Germany.
Yeah.
This entire idea of we're one race and there are no races. Indeed, there's no racism. Shortcut, very present. Like it's very in the in a way white supremacist discourses, but everything that you talked about, like safe space, inclusion, and like you seem to be doing the entire opposite of what you're saying, like of your name. So I was wondering if there has been any discussion about the name, because this entire idea, the Kantian idea, is that like one race, human race, where like we can breed, right? Like we can have offsprings that can have offsprings afterwards. When he was saying that, like there has been the lag, time lag. We are the same race, but the others, they haven't made it yet to our time, so they are lacking in time.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if there has been critique about that. What was the entire idea? What do you mean by that? Is there an anthropological background to it? So thank you.
It is.
you.
And it goes back to the 1950s. After the Nazis used, phenotypes like describing people with from different races. In fact, the Jewish religion, they transformed that into a race of people. And so in 1950, UNESCO gathered all the sociologists and anthropologists and biologists and together in one room, locked them into a room, and told them to come up with a definition of race, and they all came out with one single definition there was one race. And then with DNA, with the advent of DNA, we were able to prove that DNA connections were pretty powerful across the different ethnic groups. Where connections were pretty very strong, and we believe that people who say that there are separate races are the ones who are the racist themselves. You know what I mean? So that's why we call it sport against racism, because
Exactly.
they're the ones who think that, and it's very dangerous because the alt-right now are using terminology, phenotype terminology from the Nazis, like describing people as Caucasoid, people who live in the northwest, from the United States, and it's using the language is used in the United States and the UK. You hear people saying she's a Caucasian, and in fact, the only people who are Caucasian are people from Armenia and Georgia, where the Caucasus Mountains are. So it's that northwest part of the globe, and then the northeast part of the globe, they describe them as Mongoloid, and anybody from the southern hemisphere are Negroid. So that terminology is creeping back into education, particularly in places like Hungary, Greece. With Golden Dawn, we're using that language. So that's racist, It's and so we believe that the scientific, basically definition of one race is a human race. Otherwise, we call it human racist. You have to put an S at the end, So
Thank you.
we say that Ireland is full of has one single race called the human race, and we lots of different ethnicities, different cultures, different people, different heritages. So we get away from terminology like, as I said earlier on, using, biracial, interracial. My granddaughter is half Irish, half Zambian, and people call her half caste, because she's got a different skin color than white and black, So it's just moving away from that terminology, but that's why we call it sport against racism, because people who believe that they're separate races are the racists themselves, Does that explain it? Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Yasmin.
Thank you, Yasin. Do we have any other question? you know.
I should say, just in terms of reference for that, I think there's a very good documentary produced by the Smithsonian Institute and National Geographic called it's different titles in different countries, but it's like The Journey of Mankind, and looks at the DNA connections of people all over the world and how we're all the same, basically. So it's worth checking that out. Yeah.
By Smithsonian Institute, you said?
Yeah, Smithsonian Institute and the National Geographic. It's called The Journey of Mankind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that's all we have, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken,
No problem.
again. It was so powerful and inspirational hearing all of your work that you've done so far.
Yeah.
So thank you for.
If anybody needs more information, we have a website.
Yeah,
I think
so you can maybe put that up as well.
actually we missed one question from the YouTube. So it was asked by Ruby and Kagawan from the Philippines.
Okay.
And she's asking do you have outreach, coaching, mentorship programs that nations in other continents like Asia can tap into?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Yeah.
What she needs to do is go to the Cultures Across Continents website, and they work in the Philippines, and we're part of that. We're partners with them. So yeah, absolutely. And we also have people in Kuala Lumpur as well working in that work for us. So volunteers and interns go out and they spread the word of importance of sport for integration, for example. I hope everybody could understand my dialect. I speak a Hiberno Irish dialect. It's not quite English like in the Cambridge sense. So it's yeah.
It was pretty clear, I guess. So.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you so much to both.
Yeah, thank you again.
Okay.
So I think we're closing. If
You're
you
happy?
don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
And just stay here. We'll have Çetin cut out the live recording.
Okay.
And just for